Welcome to the Afterthoughts podcast. We have a special Kingdom Builders episode for you today with our friend Eric Hehman in the house.
Let's go.
I wore golf attire in your honor.
I appreciate that.
Eric is the best golfer I know personally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to just make you feel more comfortable.
You know what? I feel warm and welcome. Yeah.
When the four of us
You know
go
me and
play,
Ryan are sitting here at the same exact table.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Didn't cross my mind. When the four of us go play golf together, it's like one person's doing what is supposed to be happening while three other people are just destroying the course.
And he'll teach us, Eric, he'll instruct us along the way, and I'll go, I didn't even think to think that way. Like, no, you could actually lay up to about 100 yards out if you're comfortable with that. And I'm like, I always just hit it as far as I can.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Here's the part of the green you kind of want to aim at because the ball's going to run the west. I'm like, dude, I'm just hitting towards the green. I'm just hopeful it's going to bounce up there.
You get ready to putt. He's like, so where are you aiming? I'm like, I'm going to go about 3 feet to the right.
There.
3 feet to the right of the hole. He's like, okay, so I love it. You could do that. But we actually could go 3 feet to the left of the hole because this one's going to break to the right.
He taught us about the grain.
That's an interesting adventure. You're going on an interesting adventure. So sure.
I love the idea.
Yeah, that's right.
But why would you do that?
You're thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Eric
That could be really fun.
One of the last times we golfed, Eric and I made back-to-back birdie putts. Do you remember
that?
that?
That was solid.
That was awesome.
That was incredible.
That was a great moment in my life. One of the few. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to our Afterthoughts audience.
I think one of the most important things for folks to know is there actually are people that were born and raised in Austin. I realize
very few.
Most people have arrived here.
10 or 20
but
people.
There may be 15 or 20 of us, I think. But yeah, I just tell people I didn't get very far in life.
Yeah.
You know, this is just where I've stayed. So I haven't really, I just kind of wasn't that adventurous. What's interesting though, is that Austin was an incredibly boring town as a kid. Like it was a state government town and a university town. But if you had any aspirations for like your career development or like a life of advancement, you had to leave Austin. So we can talk more about that. Can you believe that at one point there were jet boat races on Town Lake?
That's awesome.
This really cool thing called Aquafest.
Yes.
It was one of the coolest things to do as a kid.
What are we talking about? Like what
this
years?
Was
also what's a jet boat?
Okay, it's like a power boat, like a race boat.
It's one I have one. It's one of my boats.
Yeah.
The jet boat that I have.
Oh, your jet boat.
Which one of Ethan's boats are we taking out?
It's part of my fleet. Those really cool boats when you see it on like YouTube when they're going and it's like boom! The boat goes up in the air and it flips like 30 times.
Okay.
They used to do those races on Town Lake.
Man, how do we get that back?
And you get like this little cool skipper pin, they called it, that would commemorate the year of the Aquafest. Yeah. But yeah, so that was Austin when I was a kid, right? That's like cool. And you experienced the city because you wanted to be here for the quality of life it provided, not for the quality of professional advancement or accomplishment and things like that. And so if you stayed in Austin, like after college, I went TT, the friends that were really ambitious left Austin. If you stayed here, you're basically immediately labeled a slacker, or you weren't that excited about like your career.
Interesting.
Wow. And so think about how different that is today.
Yeah.
Like the career advancement and the technology and all the things that happen here now.
It's all here.
That's what's so wild to watch as a kid is that my friends that had aspirations for career development, they all left.
Yeah.
And then they realized that jobs were coming back to Austin. They just were quickly super excited to get back because now they could actually like have a career here.
That's crazy.
What describe Highway 35 to us?
Ooh, 35.
Back in the day.
I'm going to give you, I'll give you a good example of 35. So grew up in Central Austin. My parents started church up in Round Rock when I was kind of in elementary school. And so we moved up there. And when I was at UT, I lived at home for a little bit. And I could drive from Round Rock, exit 254. For those that know Round Rock or Georgetown, I could drive from there to UT campus in 25 minutes every single day, not even worrying about traffic. Some days it'd be less than 25 minutes on 35.
Unreal.
Now here's interesting about like, if you think like Northwest Austin, so think Northwest Austin, okay? Northwest Austin, there's this little interchange called 183 and the tollway 45 over in that like Lakeline area. When I was a kid, 4-way stop sign, one lane each direction.
No way.
A 4-way stop sign.
It wasn't even a stoplight.
It was a stop sign and it was one lane each direction. Okay, the dam, like Mansfield Dam.
Yeah, I'll bleep that out.
So the dam, like Mansfield Dam, like you go to the Oasis and you're like sitting in the Oasis looking at the dam, right? Okay, so when I was a kid, you drove across the dam. There's an actual road on top of the dam.
Wow.
And if you put your arm out, you would lose it. Like it was like incredibly narrow.
That's wild.
That was the only way to get to Lakeway.
No way.
So you drove across the top of the dam
to
get to Lakeway. So Lakeway was like a super sleepy town with a couple golf courses. And then they built the massive bridge that you drive across now. And then Lakeway just blew up. And that's when they built Southwest Parkway to connect to Lakeway. Oh. But Lakeway, when I was a kid, like you drove across the dam and it's like you were going into like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine this. The 360 bridge didn't always exist.
I guess that's probably true.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that I think about it.
When I was about
in the beginning, God made the 360.
The Pennybacker Bridge that everybody takes pictures of, it's the focal point of Austin.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't there when I was a kid.
When was that built?
It was like early 80s, I think. Somebody can look it up. Like 82, 83, somewhere in there.
So you had
80,
to go
84.
a long way.
You just didn't go.
You just didn't go.
You just didn't go.
to Austin.
You just didn't go over there.
Wow.
And when they built it, it was primarily used by people. It was primarily used by people on a bicycle. Like no one drove the road because it was the road to nowhere.
Yeah.
And then Barton Creek got built and it became this road to somewhere, but you took forever to get there and you didn't know why you were going there, which was Barton Creek. But like when that bridge was built, like Mopac was completed kind of just before then, and Mopac was a whole new thing. Like that was it didn't so as a kid, it was just it really was just a sleepy state government kind of college town. And like your fancy restaurants were this place called Houston's on Anderson Lane that's now called Bartlett's.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
There just weren't like fancy steakhouses.
Yeah.
And that's where you went like to get massively dressed up for a really nice meal was Houston's on Anderson Lane. Like downtown was full of warehouses and like empty lots and like parking like station.
It's basically unrecognizable.
It's completely
different.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
No, seriously. It's a completely different world.
I can't even talk about my commute this morning.
183
we don't have enough
183
time.
was stoplights. Like it was not a highway. It was just stoplights.
Okay.
Wow.
So you had a stop sign at 183 and 620, and it was just stop signs and stoplights all the way to where Mopac then became a highway.
Wow.
Like to get to basically 35 was your major artery. So you drive east and west just to get to 35.
That's wild.
Anyway, it's a totally. I mean,
here's
so wild.
I want to make an observation. I know you're a big Southern California enthusiast too. When you're in Southern California, the topic of conversation is always like, which highway are you taking to where because the traffic's so bad?
805, 405.
See the Californians SNL skits. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Austin is now becoming that. Because the traffic's so bad. We're all talking about strategy and where you take.
You know what's hilarious about that though? So my wife's from Southern California, Santa Barbara, Ventura counties, and so we go out there quite a bit. San Diego area, like in Texas, it's I-35, or it's I-20, or it's I-10.
Yeah.
When I'm in California, it's the 405. It's the 8. It's the 805.
It's the only place where it's the
I think.
PCH.
Yeah.
But what's so wild is that, like, even though I go there all the time, like I still don't call the roads here.
The 35.
Right.
No, you can't.
Like, it doesn't happen. Like it doesn't happen.
It's just California.
But when I was in California just this past weekend, it's like, are we going to take the 5, the 805, the 405? Are we going to take the 8? I mean, what are we going to do?
And it felt familiar.
Isn't that hilarious?
You probably sat in a lot of traffic.
What I love about California when I'm there vacationing is I don't have to be on everyone's schedule.
Yeah, I guess
so you can avoid it, right?
That's true.
But if you get stuck on an 8-lane highway that's going nowhere, that's the most torturous feeling. Like
I once had to drive from Malibu to Laguna Beach, and it may have taken an entire day. I left at the wrong time, and it was game over.
Well, and some of the arteries, right? We were talking about this earlier, like from San Diego, like North County to like Laguna, Orange County. There's just one road, like the 5, basically, that goes through Camp Pendleton. And when there's a wreck or like congestion on that road, there is no other opportunity or way to get up and down that part of the coast.
Oh yeah.
And I've been trying to get from one part to the other to get to like a flight or something. And you're just like, I guess I'm just not going to make it. Like,
I guess I'll just go anywhere.
Just going to stare at the ocean.
Right, just look at the ocean.
At least the ocean.
Which at least is pretty, right? They offer that as your, that's your solace, right? Is that you have this beautiful like ocean.
Surfboard.
There's that. So to everyone who's listening right now, sitting in traffic, we feel your pain.
We do, 100%. The city was not, they did not want the city to grow, and you see the road system because of that.
So that's true for a lot of, that's true for the airport.
Oh, agreed.
That's true for all the, the whole entire highway structure. They built it for it to be a town.
Here.
No, agreed. Yeah. Well, so now we have this beautiful development called Mueller. That was the airport, folks. Like that was where the airport was.
Really?
So Morris Williams Golf Course, it's right across the street from it. You used to just planes all the day long flying over the golf course. And Mueller was our airport. Like that's where the airport was. And they redeveloped into beautiful housing and all that.
Oh, yeah.
But functionally, when I was a kid, there was all this protection of, salamanders or golden cheek warblers or something that I can't remember, like all these different little. And
I'm surprised you remembered golden cheek warblers.
Right. Well,
that's
So
let's get a picture. Anyway, what is that?
So there was this Save Our Springs. There were all these things that people were doing to protect the city to keep it weird. That was the Keep Austin Weird thing. Mm-hmm. And the idea was if we protect the land, you can't build the roads, and then people won't come.
Turns out
that did not work out.
Observation. See if you guys agree. When we moved here 6 years ago, I heard Keep Austin Weird almost every day. And I hardly ever hear it now. No, nobody says it anymore.
Yeah.
It's almost vanished, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a battle cry in the 90s, for sure, 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
It still existed a little bit in the 2000s, but I feel like in the last 5 or 10 years, you just don't see it or hear it, or it's not. I mean, because functionally, maybe people just gave up.
Yeah.
Like, we can't do it. We can't keep Austin weird anymore. So functionally, let's just throw in the towel.
Because everybody who's here is not from here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the culture has changed a lot then? Like, what are the biggest culture changes of the city?
You know, I think the subtle stuff, right? The things that I used to appreciate about the city were, I mean, yes, you had traffic. Even back then you had traffic because there's still people here. Yeah. But the way you get around the city now is just, there's just more stress involved. I mean, the merging stuff is it's just silly stuff, right? The going into a restaurant or a store or a establishment, retail store, whatever. Now as people hold the door. I mean, just the Southern hospitality type of stuff. That I think most of us appreciate about being in Austin was just those critical non-essentials to what makes a city feel a certain way. And I think that's what's been lost as the city's attracted people. What's interesting to me is that so many folks have come here because that's what it offered. And my hope is just they're at least sensitive to the idea that that's why they wanted to be here in the first place.
Right.
So help us try and maintain that, right? Yeah. That's what attracted you in the first place. I think it's hilarious that ACL and like South by are like March and October, and people show up here and they're like, wow, it's beautiful. It's 75 degrees. Like there's great music and we can walk Town Lake and all these wonderful things. And I'm like, no, just like host it in July, right? Like
exactly.
Let's stop the Chamber of Commerce attraction, you know, because
for real,
we'd slow it down a little bit.
A little bit. So you graduated from UT.
Graduated from UT.
What'd you study?
Business economics.
Okay. Give us the flyby in 2 minutes of where you went from college to today.
Yeah, so college today. So born and raised in Austin, like I said. Met my wife at 19, actually downtown. I used to go down there in high school. It was safe. You didn't worry about it. If you knew the people working the door, they didn't have a problem with you hanging out and doing your thing. We met downtown at a dance club, actually, on 5th Street. What's really crazy about that is a few years ago, that dance club now like hosts venues, like events, charitable events and like fundraisers. We got the address for the card for the event. I'm looking at it. I'm like, 5th and Trinity. I'm like, that sounds super familiar. We show up to the party and it's at the dance club that we met at.
That's cool.
And the sunken dance floor is still there. Obviously the place is really nice. They got brick walls and it's really cool for a party. But it was incredibly weird walking into the place where we met.
Wild.
That's where like you took my hand and that's where we like dance and that's where we like talked.
That's awesome.
And so it was super freaky. So we met at 19.
And just sorry to pause for a second, but I want to point out you met your wife on a dance floor.
Yeah.
Because you approached her in a non-weird way with confidence.
That's right.
To see if she wanted to dance, even though she was with a group of girlfriends.
Guys were bad.
Okay. Yeah.
Guys were bad that night and you weren't allowing guys into the circle. And now I'm a logical guy. You'll probably pick this out. So I looked at my opportunity cost. I was like, wait a minute, like there's no guys on the dance floor. There's a lot of girls there.
Yes.
I'm going to run with that. So that became my kind of MO when I was in high school.
Economics,
like it's just like, they're all over at the bar. I'll go to the dance floor.
It's supply and demand.
Supply and demand, right? Yeah. So we met at 19. I was playing golf at the time. I decided not to play golf when I actually went away for a little bit to play golf and then came back. And the idea was to play at UT. And so we met, came back to UT, did an internship in an accounting firm, liked about 5% of it.
That's good.
And was like, now what am I going to do? My parents are both in kind of finance, accounting type jobs, but not CPA types, but just in those corporate type of jobs. So I took an elective at UT on personal finance, met the professor, asked who does people do this for a real like living. She connected me to the founder of the company I'm at now. So I was an unpaid intern my senior year, 27 and a half years ago. So I've lived in one city basically my whole life. I met my wife at 19. We've been married for 27 years, 26 years, been together for 30. And I've had one real job for the last 27 and a half years. So I joined the founder. We built the business. He retired 10 years ago. And so now I get to be the CEO of this company that employs 23, 24 people. And we take care of 400 families, the complexity that comes from doing successful things in business and then trying to do it on purpose, like do it to help other people or help their families. So we have to work with a lot of family stewards, and it's great. Like it's a wonderful gig. But also I've only had one of them, right? So I've only had one real job, never had a resume, never did interviews.
Like it just worked. I feel like your story is the story of playing the long game.
It's 100% the long game. It's a marathon,
in a world that's
sprint.
shifting, and always how I feel today, I'm going to change jobs, I'm going to change relationships, whatever. You have just continue to play the long game and seeing a lot of success, which is why I think it'll be very helpful for people to hear from you on this episode, because we have a lot of people who listen who are trying to figure out their future. They're trying to figure out their next step. They're trying to figure out relationships. And so I think you have a lot of wisdom to share with our crew.
I appreciate that. Like it's, like I said, most people at UT when we graduated, they left because the careers and the opportunities were in Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, somewhere other big city. And I stayed, and I took a lot of flack for that. Like just from peers and from my colleagues and things, like, why are you staying here and working for basically free for this person that, just has this one little business by himself? And I'm like, look, I feel like this is what I want to do. And if it doesn't work out in 3 years, I'll make another call, right? I'll make another call. And it took about 4 or 5 years for people to see that it was the right choice. But that's to your point, right? Like it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like this life is the long game. And oftentimes you find yourself in a situation where it's not super clear what the result's going to be. I think the strength comes from just being obedient with whatever that place you're in. Like if God so every place is a God place if God places you there. A mentor of mine told me that. And it's like, well, so if you're in that place, then it's probably a God place for you. And until you feel released from it, then you just do the best you can while you're there. And functionally, the people around you, as it starts to work out, they may come around, but they may still challenge the fact that it worked for you. So when it's not working, they're challenging, why are you doing it? When it's working, then they don't understand why it actually worked out for you and it didn't work out for them. Right, so you kind of can't win scenario. But that's part of the long game, frankly. I mean, that happens in marriages, it happens in jobs, it happens in churches. It's like you stick with things and God reveals like what develops over a longer period of time as opposed to it's a quick fix.
Yeah. You and Jaylene have been married for how many years?
I've been married since 98, so I've been married for 26 and a half years.
Man, that's awesome.
Wow.
And you have 4 kids. Do you want to shout out any of your kids specifically?
I don't ask me the question which one you love the most, because that would be really uncomfortable.
Of course.
So Christopher's the oldest. He's engaged, which is awesome. He's in his own life now, independent. Connor's 20, he's navigating the real world and kind of being independent, which is also really cool to see, and also volunteering a lot for things that matter to him. And then we have 2 left in high school. So we have James, who's a senior. We have Jenna, who's a junior. And what I love about where they are now and where we are now as a family is I love being their friend. Like I love being encouraged by them. I love being challenged by them. I love having really meaningful conversations. And it's one of the most joyful things you get to do as a parent, I think, is find yourself with enough emotional deposits or relational deposits with your children to the point where you can make a withdrawal when you need to, like give them advice about something that's tough for them, but they can also do the same to you.
Yeah.
Like there's enough equity in that bank account that they can make a withdrawal out of the relationship too. And I love that. I love that we do life together. We church together. We do dinner together. We do family stuff together. And Jay and I get to lead them in that. And we each have our own approach to things, but they seek us out when we can be helpful. And I think they generally enjoy being around us. And that's very encouraging.
You can tell, man, in the lobby. I mean, there's times where they'll show up on their own, doing their own thing, which is cool in and of itself and amazing. But also there's times where you all roll in as a family, and maybe you all have your polos on because you're going to go play golf later that afternoon or whatever. And I look at that, I'm like, that's so cool. It's just a family structure of people who love each other, who are for each other. And I know that's taken a lot of work and playing the long game. So well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fruit that you can see. I mean, every kid's going to make their decisions and be their own person,
100%.
But your oldest, Chris, reached out to me recently and it's like, hey, I'm in Austin, planted here now. Can I serve with our FPU team and help people with their finances at the church?
Let's go.
Front row this weekend, Connor's there in his Red Rocks kids shirt with a huge smile on his face at church, serving with kids. Your other 2 are tearing it up in the youth group with everybody. So pretty awesome. So let's we have a unique angle to get to know people more on this show, and it's everyone's favorite part.
Let's go.
So I don't want you to miss out on questions with Kayla.
Come on, Kayla.
Come on, Kayla.
I know Kayla.
Yes.
Kayla you were in Eric's couples group.
Yeah. So she could have some good ones for me. There could be some stingers here.
She's seen behind the curtain.
She's been in my house. She's been there. Like
I know.
She's seen the life.
Yes.
They're the best. Y'all are amazing. Both you and your wife. Well, my questions kind of go off of Eric earlier this morning and gave some team time wisdom and advice and encouragement for our staff. And so I have some questions kind of going off of that.
All right. Okay.
What sounds fun to you? What do you find joy in if you're like in a rut?
So a meaningful conversation, like it's super easy to kind of cover the day with just like what's going on in sports, what's going on with the kids, what's going on with that. But like, I really seek out a deep, meaningful conversation. Like if I'm in a rut, like I have this team of people that I basically say that their fingerprints are all over my life. This wise counsel, right? Like these mentors and friends that I've had in my life for 15, somewhere over 20 years. And what's great is that they're my lifeline. And so that wasn't always the way when I was in my 20s or 30s, but that became built out more in my 30s. But like if I'm in a rut, like it's a meaningful conversation. Like it's a conversation that matters, where they can speak into who I am as a person, or just kind of like just grab my neck, right? Like just get out of that. Like you don't need to be in that hole anymore. Or I can just hear from them. They can mirror to me who I am because they know me well enough to kind of speak into, that's not who you are. Like that's not the soundtrack you're listening to. That's not the tape you should be playing. And I think that's one of the things I most appreciate is if I'm in a place where I'm not enjoying things, seeking out those conversations just to remind myself of really who I am, who they see me as, like what matters to me, just essentially tell me that again.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Most people think of fun as only like the light. Like I don't think about anything, unplug my brain moments, but that's a deeper way.
By the way, and I'm going to ask you more about this later on in the conversation, but I feel like every time we're catching up, you're always saying, I was just with one of my mentors. I was just having lunch with one of my mentors. I just got off the phone with one of my mentors and he said this to me. I was just on a trip with one of my mentors. You have like a team of mentors and you're very intentional about doing life with them and keeping them in your life. I'm going to ask you a question about that later, but Kayla, I know we call
foreshadowing.
Doug, I will make a note.
Whoa, hey, here we go.
Kayla's very curious, and so I want to let her.
That's a little segment we call foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. Sponsored by Foreshadowing.
There you go.
4 of us. Foreshadowing. 3 bad golfers.
It's happening.
By the way, we should each give a 1-word answer to that question. I'm going to say ocean.
What sounds like fun? Was that the question? Sports.
Well, she said when I was in a rut. Like, I mean,
That's true.
Yeah. So I went to the,
No, that's good. And
your answer is better than
mine.
But
the ocean
way
is
better.
The ocean, I can love me some ocean.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to say trip.
Nice. Okay.
Not like
you
falling.
trip and fall.
No. Like going somewhere.
But you did do that running. Remember that recently?
He doesn't remember because he fell.
And somebody saw you.
He doesn't
remember. Didn't you tell that story? You were on a run and you thought there was sidewalk and then you just fell.
Literally, I was thinking about a sermon. I was on a morning run.
It was a good one.
The sidewalk is that big. And I found my way to the side of the sidewalk and then twisted my ankle and fell down.
Was the sermon called "Where the Sidewalk Ends"?
Yeah,
let's find out.
Reference.
Let's see if Starlink recorded that.
Starlink, yes,
that video for us via satellite somehow.
So someone's just driving by, watching somebody run, and then they just fall. A grown man just falls.
He was doing really good for so long.
Wow,
it was going so well.
Do you stop? Because I feel like if you stop and roll, you're like, "Are you okay?" It's more humiliating.
No, it's worse. I'm good.
This guy's 3 miles into this, and he's just going to keep going.
Kayla, stop sidetracking us. Ask us another question.
It's like when the guy's holding the door open
question
for you, and you're like 100 feet away. You're like,
I'm coming.
You're like,
go.
No, really.
I can open the door. I know how to do it.
It's going to be a while.
I told that car, "Hey, I'm just in a rut right now, so I wanted to trip."
Yeah.
Ooh.
Next question.
Hey, all right.
oh, nailed it.
Man, put that clip on Instagram.
That's solid.
That was so good.
Solid. Highlight. Yeah.
Eric also talked a lot about the childlikeness and what benefits come from that. So, what was your favorite age as a kid, and why?
I'd say kindergarten.
Deep and thoughtful today.
So I'd say like 5 years old. Like I think it was the first glimpse of independence, and also like being around people that you didn't know, and having to just navigate that. Right. Like we talked a little bit about just like what an elementary school day looks like. I mean, just there's so many fun things about an elementary school day, and I think that was super fun to be exposed to that for the first time. And because so what was neat about my childhood was there were kids I went to kindergarten with that I graduated high school with. So I think back to those early days of kindergarten of like just doing life with these people. Like we didn't know each other. And what was so neat is that it was so was just very raw. Like there was, you weren't posturing. There was no this. And I think it was such a free environment to be in kindergarten. Recess and PE and snack time and nap time and field trips and story time. I mean, like it was all new. Yeah. And I think as an adult, there's very few things that are new. It doesn't feel like there's many new things anymore. Yeah. You kind of have to manufacture them. And I think kindergarten was just this beautiful world of new with new people and friends that you became lifelong friends in a lot of ways. So it's super cool. That's why I'd say 5 years old kindergarten.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's good.
I feel like I'm back in time right now.
I know.
Like feeling it.
Which time?
Yeah. What's your
I'm going
answer?
to say 11, 6th grade. Wood Ranch Elementary School in Simi Valley. And 6th grade was just, I don't know what it was about that year, but I loved 6th grade.
I have the same answer. I was in 4th grade at the time.
Same school.
Same school. We would walk, Doug, myself, and my mom would walk to school every morning, and like Marine Layer, Southern California.
Uphill both ways.
Yeah, it was uphill, but pray for us.
But it was 65
Well,
degrees.
it was uphill both ways because it did. You just went over a hill. So
Wow.
yeah.
I got
But it was
downhill.
perfect weather every single day.
Oh, it was so good.
a light jacket, maybe a hoodie. Yeah.
Just there's.
Did you walk or ride a bike?
We would walk that year.
Okay.
Yep. Later on, 5th and 6th grade in Colorado, I would ride my bike.
I never got to ride a bike or walk to school because I lived out in the country.
Yeah, that would be a mission.
Kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Or inline skate because Brink just came out.
Sometimes we would inline skate.
Inline skates?
Yeah.
Oh
Nice.
yeah.
All right, E.
Any age before 16 because I met Doug when I was 16. So it was just a wonderful, beautiful life.
Yeah.
And then Doug,
Wow.
It's harsh.
and now you're still 3 feet away from him.
That's a bit much, isn't
I
it?
think there is something.
Could leave at any time.
Yes. Okay. It's not Hotel California, by the way. You can leave.
Well, it feels like that, Eric. God has called me to disciple this guy.
Harsh.
6th grade is a magical year because you feel like you're old,
That's
like you're at the top of the food
true.
chain.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah.
I'll throw 6th grade out there.
Yeah.
Now, was your 6th grade junior high or was it elementary school?
Elementary for me.
Okay, so
we
in
were
ours,
right.
it was the first year of
It was
junior
like
high.
being
so
a
it's
senior in
traumatic.
elementary school.
Traumatic.
6th grade here was
Yes.
traumatic because it
You
was like,
want-
you know, you're with
you
big
walk,
kids.
yeah, you see 8th
Yeah,
graders.
you're
like,
getting
that's
pushed
an
around
adult.
and
Oh, yeah.
they have
Exactly.
mustaches and stuff.
Yeah,
like
that guy
it was
was
freaky.
facial hair.
Yeah.
So 6th grade was not as much fun in Texas because that was the beginning of
see.
junior high, middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see an 8th grader, you're like, you're closer to my dad's age.
Do you know
than
my
my
dad?
age.
No,
From work?
for real. Yeah. You can
you guys
bench
sell
press
insurance
me.
or
Yeah.
Also, when you walk in, it's
It's
the
the
same thing as
Progressive commercial.
when you're a freshman in high school and you're like walking in and you see a girl and you're like, oh man, who's that? And then you walk in and look around, you're like, it's going to be a long road for me.
I'm
no
a
girls
long
checking
way
this guy
away
out
from
right
this.
now.
Yeah.
When you're a
There's
freshman,
grown
you're like,
men
you're
that
like,
go to
those
our
are
school
women.
now.
Yes.
And I am a kid.
I am a mere child.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a tough.
I can't wait to get home
being
to
a
have a
freshman,
snack.
being a freshman boy.
I'm still,
that's tough.
I'm still shopping at Gap Kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this
Yes.
is not a good look.
I'm a youth large.
I can have a snack and watch SpongeBob.
Yeah, I will watch
I don't think
Nickelodeon today.
This woman is going to
Yeah.
be interested in going to homecoming with me, but
Woman.
whatever.
Yeah,
But here we are.
She's dating a guy with a
Where's my locker?
401k there over in senior class.
They're in a 5-0 Mustang.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That is tough. Shout out to all the freshmen in high school. We have
Yeah,
a
right.
huge
Hang in
audience
there.
of them that listen to this
It gets
podcast.
It's a
better.
long
These are
game.
fantastic
Hang in there.
questions.
It gets
Kayla,
better.
do you have any more questions?
I have one more.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
You're really
Okay.
getting us talking.
Yeah.
I
this is-
know.
yeah.
Chatterboxes.
Doing great at your
Okay.
Okay, so you also read us an amazing book this
yes.
morning. What was your favorite childhood like story time book?
Ooh.
Wow. That's a great question because I can't think of one. So I turned 50 next month. So I'm just going to blame this on the fact that I can't remember things.
Let me be the first to
Yeah,
say
please,
happy
yeah.
50th birthday.
Oh,
man.
yeah. Well, thanks.
Since it,
Best
I mean,
decade
I
yet.
thought you'd have black balloons or
already said
something
happy
like over the
birthday.
hill, like I'm ancient, right? Where are the dinosaurs at? You know, the tar
Beat me
pits.
to it.
Those are right around the
Nice.
corner.
Uh-huh.
I really can't think of one. I don't know why. I mean, when I was a kid, like as a dad, there was this book called Snuggle Puppy that like the kids loved. I can't remember what it was called, but basically in the story, it was like Snuggle Puppy. I mean, like I'd read the book to you because I still remember it, but we had so much fun with it.
Mhm.
So like the kids' books, I don't know. I enjoy reminding myself of being a kid because there's so much adulting that's hard. And so that's why I kind of shared the kids' book with y'all. But like I can't remember one of my favorites when I was a kid, but I remember a lot of the ones that we got to read with our kids.
Yeah.
This was one of my favorite. It was a sweet time of the night.
Yeah.
Like to be able to
Yeah.
sit there with them and just read a story and have fun with it and make funny voices and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know all the studies that have come out of like plants, if you speak life over them, they grow faster and they grow better.
Yeah.
And vice versa, if you speak death over them, like water
too,
the molecules literally change.
Really?
Wild,
Yeah. It's
like if you talk to a plant.
if you
I need to look into this.
So that's why
sounds interesting.
it's actually wild. Plants thrive more when you speak life.
Really?
And plants, it's the opposite is true when
That's wild.
You're in a environment that's hostile, and this is true for
crazy.
water molecules. Yeah. So
Well, that's good to know because Zeke just got a beta fish and Steph thought it was going to die. And then Steph's like devoted to this thing.
Yeah.
So she's like watching
Inspirational
it,
talks.
encouraging it. And Zeke has a plant named Bobby that has somehow.
and what's the beta fish's name?
Well, he named his beta fish Blue Cheetah, but then he changed it to Blue Gill.
Oh.
And now it's Blue Gill.
Blue Cheetah.
Blue Cheetah and Bobby. So, but maybe they are.
So
Maybe they're surviving because he's like encouraging them.
It could be.
I don't know.
But you talk about you love
be.
reminding yourself of when you were
Bobby.
a child.
The plant.
There's studies that also
don't know how
show.
that happened.
I don't know how they do this,
Where the plant
but if
came
you
from.
listen to music from from when we were 4th and 6th grade,
Yeah, man.
listening to music actually slows
Takes me
down the
right back.
aging process. Slows down your aging process. Listening to music and being that takes you back
Dang.
to when you were a kid. Yeah, so
That's wild.
I want to see some research on this.
we can.
I'll
we got
show
some-
you.
I'm fascinated. Maybe Bobby will live forever.
Maybe.
If we just speak life over
I
him.
wonder if that's why we like music from like high school.
Oh,
so
yeah.
much. Like whenever you say like, "What's your favorite band?" It's usually time from that.
There's
like, good age.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Keeps us young.
Yeah.
It does.
I can
You
see
guys
that.
have any good books from your childhood?
Go dog go.
Yeah, that was
Go,
my
go,
answer.
go.
When
Green
I
Eggs and Ham.
started being able to read like beyond
Dr.
a picture
Seuss
book,
was
the
massive.
Magic
That was
Tree
big. That was
House
big when I was a
books.
kid.
Did you guys read the
Yes.
Magic Tree House books?
No, but I read the
That
Magic
was like
School Bus
your
books.
imagine also good.
Yeah.
But the Magic Tree House is where my imagination was like, whoa.
We had that whole
this is
collection,
cool.
and
Those
we would
were
just like
good.
cycle through them with the kids.
Yeah,
and,
I like those.
and they started reading themselves and stuff.
I also
Yeah.
love zoo books. I had like every
You were a
zoo
big
book.
zoo
Couldn't
book
get
guy.
over it, man.
One of my
Zoo
favorites
books.
that I've read a lot to Zeke in his lifetime is Grumpy Monkey. That is a very funny book. Recommend it to all of you.
That's a great title.
Okay.
Yeah, check it out.
Grumpy
Okay,
Monkey.
man.
Any more questions, Kayla?
I'm good.
Great
Thanks,
job.
Eric.
Great
Kayla.
question.
Great questions.
Yes.
Let's dive into some more questions we have and some things for you to talk about. Let's first go to Doug because
Okay.
Doug wanted to ask about mentorship.
Well, actually, I wanna postpone that one for a few minutes.
This is
I
more
haven't-
foreshadowing.
Whoa.
Actually,
wow,
just because of chronologically speaking
Yeah.
here, I want to go back to, I think, right when you graduated and you're, okay, so you're in the real world and you're thinking, all my friends are going out of town to get other jobs. And you mentioned you become an unpaid intern. But correct me if I'm wrong, but the company wasn't looking to hire an intern.
No.
You kind of went and made it happen.
Yeah.
And what I want to highlight is, because I feel like there's a lot of people watching right now who maybe could use a little bit of like a source of inspiration.
Good.
Of there was a mindset that you had of, and maybe some of it was like ignorance, and I don't know any better. It's the best thing that could ever happen to you. So I'm just going to take a leap of faith and take a risk and knock on this door. I don't know, or just like a confidence, or there's not a door that's just magically opening for me. So I am going to go open one. And I that mindset is powerful. And I think especially right now for a lot of younger, like guys and girls watching this. And I wanted to just ask you what you were thinking at that point.
If I could call it one word, it would just be curious.
Okay.
Like when I was sitting in that class, I was curious if people did this. And I went up to the professor and asked them a question. Just asked the question about, does this actually happen in the wild? Like, do people do this for a living? So
In
I'm,
the
I'm-
wild is such a
No,
great
seriously.
way to
Like,
say
I
that.
mean,
truly.
So I'm a certified financial planner by trade in terms of education. And so I'm in this class and it's all about like finance and tax and estate planning and things like that. And I'm like, do people actually do this? And like, actually, no. They pretty much just sell stuff to people that don't need it and like convince them to buy things that they don't want. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. And she was like, well, but there are some people that are operating like law firms and accounting firms. And I'm like, I just came off this really bad experience in an accounting firm. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. But I just stayed curious. And so I asked her for a list of people she thought in Austin that did it the way I would want to do it, that I could learn from. So I just start calling them. Hey, can I talk to you about this? Can I ask you some questions? Just stay curious, right? Can I ask you questions? Got a hold of the founder of this company. And I thought my questions over the phone were so good that he was like, well, I have to talk to Eric. I have to talk to you. So I go over to his office, right? After class. And fortunately, my lovely bride was like, you might want to treat this a little more seriously than just like a drive-by. So she's like, you might want to just like not wear a t-shirt and shorts. So actually maybe dress up a little bit, which was incredible wisdom when I tell you how this guy dressed. So I show up at his office. He was like the Monopoly man.
Okay.
Like 3-piece suit, cufflinks, bow tie.
Monocle?
No way.
Like,
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, seriously, like 3-piece suit,
Yep.
the coin with a little purse, like the little thing that hangs, the chain.
That's incredible.
Cuff, I mean, like the whole thing. So he was completely decked out.
Wow.
So I show up. Luckily, I was wearing like,
like
a suit kind of thing that I could patch together from like, some second looks, whatever, you know, place. Sponsor, please. And so I show up and I go in and I start asking him questions like, well, how do you do this? And what do you do? And what's a Monday look like? And what are your meetings like? And I just was curious, right? We end the conversation after like 2.5 hours. And I'm like, wow, I must have like asked some really good questions. Come to find out, he didn't have anything to do that day. And he was like, he just loved to talk to people. Like, he had to tell a story. He was just charismatic and was like, never met a stranger. So him having an audience was like the best thing ever because he wasn't doing anything. So I was just happen to be the audience. Well, so in the meeting and I said, look, I don't know what I want to do. And he's like, well, I can't hire you. I'm not even having any positions. It was basically a solo business. And I said, well, what if I just come here after class or on my days off and I work for free? Because I was waiting tables at nights on the weekends. What if I just do that and just like observe what you do? And, and I'll just start helping you out. And after 4 or 5 months, I was about to graduate. And so he had all the knowledge around what we did as a business, but didn't have the business knowledge. He'd had the company for 10 years, but it was just a lifestyle business. Essentially, if you had work to do, you're working. If you didn't have work to do, you just weren't working, right? Like, it's totally discretion of your time, basically. And he loved that, but he also had this vision of building something bigger, but he just didn't know how to do it. So I showed up and my job was basically just to be business one-on-one stuff. Let's get organized. Let's figure out how we're getting paid. Let's figure out like what our agreements say. Let's figure out what our meeting schedules, like just basic business organizational stuff. And I told you guys about my leadership administration. It was like super easy for me. It didn't even feel like work. And after 4 or 5 months, the business starts growing primarily because we just were doing the things we said we would do and following up on it, right? Or like organizing it. And I went to him and I said, look, I'm about to get married in about 10 months. My lease is up at my apartment. I don't even know if I told you guys this story. My lease is up at my apartment and I have a roommate and we're about to get married in 10 months. And so I want to buy a house. And so I went to him with a proposal and I said, look, I'm waiting tables and Jaylene's waiting tables and we want to buy this. Again, I lived in Austin my whole life. You could buy a house for $84,000 on 183 and McNeil.
Still,
okay?
It's still kind of that way.
Right? So,
it's not.
So
thank you for clarifying that.
In 1997, so I'm an unpaid intern and I go to the founder of the company and I say, look, I want to buy a house because I want to start a life with my wife in 10 months when we get married. And I have 2 buddies that need a place to live. And if I buy this house with her, I can rent the 2 rooms out to my buddies and live there for free for the next 10 months. Right. And so can you pay me $750 a month? Because I was working for free. I'm about to graduate from UT and my friends were going to go earn like many magnitudes of that, right? And he was like, you know what? You've been super helpful for the last 4 or 5 months. And so I'll agree to do it. And so he writes a letter. This is beautiful. I still have the letter. And he basically says, to it main concern, we've accepted Eric Hehman in our internship program and he'll be paid this much money and to commence or whatever upon whatever. And it was like this beautiful letter. And I sent it to the mortgage people and they took it, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And so between the 2 of us, we could show that we made like $35,000.
Right.
So we could buy this house and put 3% down. And I rented out 2 rooms to my buddies and that's how I got my first paycheck.
Wow.
As only a financial planner would do, right?
Yeah,
like, okay, I'm going to build out a scenario and make it so he feels compelled to honor that.
So brilliant.
And so we bought the house. And so that started my career at the firm. Was my job was just to run around and organize his life, like organize the business in a way that it wasn't organized. And I found a ton of fulfillment from doing that.
Yeah.
And then the business began to grow. And within a few years, it had doubled in size and tripled in size. And then he offered me ownership at 24 years old as a way to keep me at the firm. Because he saw that we were a really great team. Like he could do the technical work of what we did as an offering to the business, to the kind of the community. And then I could do the business side of how do we build it. So we were on like Worth Magazine's lists and all these top advisor lists around the country because we were one of the first firms that just did a fee for service. We weren't selling things to people. We just charged an hourly rate or a project fee, like a law firm or accounting firm. And because we were different and unique in that, people started paying attention to that as the internet became a thing and consumer advocacy and transparency. We were the benefactors of just being kind of first to market in this part of the state. And I love building the business out and providing opportunities to people that were just like me if they don't want to go do those other things, if they don't want to go work in those other environments, come work for us. We'll pay you a salary and we have the work. We just need people to do really great work. So, and it's been a fun business to build, and I go back to those early days and it was about curiosity. Like I just was curious about what was going on in the business, and I was willing to keep waiting tables at nights and on the weekends so that I could just be around what I thought I would be interested in. Yeah. And I think about that for now. And I think about like college kids or like some of my son's friends that are in that age. Like, go wait tables. You can make good money on like weekends or night shifts or doubles, and then find a company just to go work for free at. Like just offer yourself for 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like any business owner worth their weight is not going to say no. Yeah. And if they say no, you don't want to be there anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're willing to give your time, which people talk about how busy they are, you show that you're going to wait tables on the nights and weekends and you're willing to work for free, even for like a few weeks. It is going to be completely different than any other employee they've ever been exposed to. And I'd be incredibly surprised if they weren't compelled to figure out a way to pay you at some point. Yeah. Like I'm convinced of that.
I'm just convinced of that. Where does your drive, like you have a hunger and drive for working hard and for life. And like you're very successful now. You've worked very hard. You've made your way, but you continue to want to get better, not just throw more money, but like, where does that come from? Because I think we live now where so many, what's preached at your kids, that generation on TikTok is you can work 10 hours a week, make passive income, you'll be a millionaire, you'll retire by 40, all these impractical things that eliminate hard work, eliminate grit. Yeah. So where does that come from for you? And how do you advise like your kids and like their peers, their friends that are entering the workforce?
I definitely think it came from my parents. My parents stayed in their jobs. My dad worked for the state of Texas for over 30 years, 35, 36 years in a lot of different positions, but basically like he worked for the state. And it was not a glorious job. It was not an attractive job, but it was a job that he did with a lot of purpose and obedience. And my mom worked for HEB for over 30 years and was part of the team that started Central Market. So those are my examples, right? Neither one of them were these massive attention getting jobs, but they did those jobs out of excellence. And I got to see them do that. I got to live, like I go with my dad to different, like, he was like a commercial real estate agent for the state. So he would do like leases for different offices. And in the summertime, I'd go with him to like a trip to San Angelo or Lufkin or Nacogdoches or these weird towns all over Texas, Midland or something. But I got to see him interact with people. And he was excellent at what he did, even though it was not like some lucrative or super successful kind of job. He was just excellent at it. And same with my mom. Like they just did that work in a way that you just admired them for that. And so when I worked in, the grocery store as a kid, or whether it was golf or whether it was, I felt like being around my parents and helping start a church and things like that when I was little, I just saw that it was worth it. Like I saw that the hard work was worth it at some point, even if I couldn't see it. And I just, being dedicated to things or committed to things or being obedient to things just came supernatural. And I think it was just because of how God wired me, frankly, like there's a gifting that I have for that. But also just watching my parents do that. I mean, they volunteered at places, they gave their time, they did the PTA. My dad dressed up as Santa Claus and came to my elementary school. Like they just did that stuff. And so I think that drive was, awesome. If I can see it or have an idea about something, or I think it's an area that I can give myself to, like it's incredibly motivating for me to do that. And so I'm very self-motivated. So I enjoyed team sports, but when golf kind of got my attention, it's the ultimate challenge. Like it's never perfect. There's never a perfect round. Your swings. You have to be driven to play that game and or want to get better at it.
Yeah. Are there any systems or ways you've automated that into your life a little bit? Because it can be so emotional. If like today I want to work hard, or today I really have that drive to go after something or dream big or whatever. Are there some things you've put in place in your life that keep that practice?
So the one thing that primarily shows up on my calendar is I block for probably the last. So I've been the CEO of the company for 17 years. So probably the last 15 years, the founder retired 10 years ago, which was a wonderful thing and all that. So, but probably 12, 15 years ago, I started blocking 2 hours every day for my lunches. And it was my time, but it was my time in the sense of I'm a leader, but I also need to be led. And that's also a way to me stay refreshed in terms of like wanting to have that drive, because I knew that if I worked through the day and I did that over and over and over, at some point there won't be any more water left in the bucket. Like there won't be much left in it because it will have seeped out. And so that block that I have in the middle of the day is my chance to be led or to lead and to exercise that muscle. So that driven muscle shows up in these meaningful conversations, like I mentioned. Like I get to have lunch with people that I admire. I get to have lunch with people that I can actually feed into. I get to have lunch with people that encourage me and that I encourage. Like, so it's that drive, I think, is replenished through those 2 hours every single day that are blocked out for me. Not every lunch is some big, deep level 5 therapy session. Some of them are just, I'm getting to see someone I haven't seen for a while. And it's just wonderful to hear their story.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of my story. And it reminds me of why that story matters. And it reminds me of how I'm made and what's important. Like it just affirms the drive of why I'm still leading this business or why I'm leading this family or why like I still enjoy giving back in the city.
Yeah. It makes me think Craig Rochelle talks a lot about urgent versus important, and the urgent will overtake the important if you let it, but you've automated important is going to happen every day in my life. I'm going to prioritize that. And I know I'm guilty of like, I want to do those things, but all these other things seem like more important, even though they're not. And you lose some of those meaningful conversations, the vision conversations, the things that draw you back to the big picture of your life. I want you to tell a little story that you've told our crew. Your license plates mean a lot to you. Most people's license plates, like personalized plates, I've noticed, are normally like them referencing their car.
Yeah, which is just ridiculous. Yeah. You paid extra to tell us what kind of car you're driving.
We can see
what
that.
Are you doing?
It cracks me up, or they're funny puns or something like that. Yeah. But yours are very meaningful and speak to the mentality you walk with. So walk us through the story of where those came from.
So I'll go back a little further. So when I was a kid, like I grew up out in the country, and it was a pretty simple life, right? Like we didn't have neighbors. We had cows and like cotton fields as neighbors, right? And so you had a lot of time to like make believe and like, you couldn't ride your bike to school, right? Like I said, so there weren't a lot of friends around me. I had a few friends, but they were like, it's a 10-mile bike ride, 10-minute bike ride type of thing. And so I had this fascination with cars. And so I had all these Hot Wheels. And so when I'd visit my grandparents who lived in Taylor, which is about 20 minutes east of Round Rock or so, I spent a lot of time with them. And the biggest treat was to go to Walmart and she'd give me $1 and I could buy a couple, Hot Wheels. And maybe like a little candy bar or something. And I kept those Hot Wheels. So because they reminded me of like just that playtime and all that. So when my kids got older, I gave them the Hot Wheels. So I have this fascination about cars and just how they work, right? So I'm the kid that went to business school and took a physics class for fun, right?
Nice.
Okay. So I just love how things work.
Curious.
Right? Curious,
Maybe
right?
Curious George was the books that you
know. There were a lot of Curious George. There wasn't a lot of Curious George. Well played. Well played. So the license plate deal, right? So there've been different seasons of my life where I've struggled with things or had to ask for a lot of help in terms of like the challenges that life presented as well as the opportunities life presented. And one of those came when probably 15, 16 years ago when we had 4 kids under 6 and my hair was on fire. I was the new CEO of the company and the global financial crisis was like in full effect. And I just couldn't find much joy. Like I knew it was there, but I just couldn't find it. And so I was in that rut like that Kayla was talking about. And so I went and met with a counselor friend of mine, and for many months, we'd navigated this, and we spent a lot of time in Ecclesiastes. Yes, it's not a super uplifting book, but for me, it was exactly what I needed because I'm wired that way.
It's oddly uplifting.
It is.
Once you work through it.
It's at a surface level, you don't go there, but if you're willing to dig into level 2 or level 3 of what he's at, it was incredibly encouraging to me.
Right. And it's realistic.
It's very realistic. And I think for someone where I was in my life, I say this carefully, I was so far beyond where my parents ever were and wherever I thought I would be in terms of the discretion I had, my experiences. I never flown on a plane with my parents until we went to Hawaii when I was 26 years old. We drove everywhere. So like the experience I was having at plus or minus 30, 35, like I never even saw a glimpse of that when I was a kid, nor did my parents. And so I found myself in this place of like, what do I do with all this? And what came from it was this part of Ecclesiastes, and I don't have it memorized in front of me. I could pull it up on my phone, but functionally he's talking about the best thing we can do is find enjoyment in the toil of life. And that on the surface level, you're like, well, wait a minute, like toil, that sounds horrible. And like, well, how do you enjoy toil? Well, the gift of that toil and seeing it as a gift was where I had to get. And finding that joy was about, well, in each day, as hard as they are, there is joy in each day. It may be harder to find and you may have to look a lot harder for it, but there is joy in each day. And so I create this license plate for myself that's it's in the other room, but NJY2DY, so enjoy today. And it's on the license plate for me. It's not for someone else, because most of my life back then was going to an office that I felt overwhelmed and I was ill-equipped to lead. and the team that I was responsible for. So when I got in that car, I want to remind myself, just enjoy today. Like you're about to go to this place where it's important that you're a good leader and that you have a posture of somewhat of joy, even though it wasn't always there every day. But the license plate was a reminder. And then when I would leave work and I'd drive home to 4 little kids that had soccer practice and dance stuff and snotty nose and dirty diapers and all that I'd look at the car and I go, just enjoy today. Like you get to have 4 kids. You don't have to have 4 kids. You get to drive to soccer practice. You don't have to drive. Like just that difference between get versus have to. And so that license plate's been on my car, my primary car that I drive for the last plus or minus 15 years. And that's important to me. And it's still there today because I still need the reminder. And when I sign an email, most often it's going to say enjoy today on it because I need to remind myself when I say that to someone, no matter what the email is. And I hope that they see it as what's different. Like it's not thank you and it's not best regards or it's not,
best
regrets or something.
Cheers.
Right. Exactly. So most of the time I'll say enjoy today.
Cheers is like saying like, I'm pretty cool.
I'm good.
I'm a fun guy.
Yeah. I'm also like,
cool. It's that wink and
Casual
thumbs.
Friday
It's
Monday.
It's the Fonz moment, right? For Happy Days.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Cheers,
so
man.
enjoy today. That went on a license plate. And then
do you feel like people flip you off less on the road because you have a license plate that says enjoy today? Like,
great
I feel like if I was mad and saw that, I'd be like, okay, this guy, like,
you know,
good call.
frankly, it looks like New Jersey today. Like it's NJ2DY.
Okay.
There's not like an E or the O
Right.
and stuff like that. So I've asked people periodically, like, hey, what do you think it says? And people don't get it right away.
Yeah.
And I'm actually good with that. Like, cause the plate, again, the vanity plate thing, that was like a Post-it note for me. That's a Post-it note on the thing that I see the most and I was spending the most time in.
Yeah, that's good.
So it was like a Post-it note. It wasn't a look at me, I'm cool. It was a Eric needs this reminder.
It was for you.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have the reminder, there's a chance I'm not going to enjoy today.
Yep.
You might flip people off less if you have one of those.
I don't flip people off.
Oh, okay.
Just to clarify.
So then I went through the season 3 or 4 years later. I got comfortable with the enjoy today kind of thing. And then I found myself in like, well, God, what do I have to offer the world in this 1 Peter 4:10 thing about each one choose whatever gifts they receive to serve others, faithfully administering God's grace in various forms. So I found that and started really digging into that. And what I found was I just need to share things more. And so this concept of conduit, again, I talked about the physics thing. I loved how stuff worked. And I was fascinated by the fact that, a conduit's just a piece of pipe, the way we think of it now from building a house or something. It's what's inside of it that matters that's flowing through it. And a really good conduit, whatever flows through it doesn't lose energy or it's still very efficient, right? It's not deteriorated. So I thought, well, if I should think of myself as a conduit for whatever experiences I have or the resources I have or the, whatever I can offer people. And again, just do better at that. Just be mindful of that. So for my 40th birthday, I went and bought a fun car for myself and looked all over and actually got it from San Diego, which was really fun. And I put the license plate on it as a reminder of, yes, it's a fun car and it was for me, but it's also an expression of it needs to be shared. And the things that I have that are like that car, I want to hold very loosely to them. So about a year after that, that conduit kind of thing became a thing for me. I created an LLC. I wrote a book with a mentor of mine around succession and leadership transition and would go speak about it. And essentially it's called the Conduit Group. I mean, it's like, essentially I have something to offer and I just want to offer it to people. And it's really fun to kind of remind people of like, well, why do you call it that? And conduit, like, what does that mean? Like, and it's fun to be able to tell this because there's something a mentor of mine told me, again, to go back to your thing. Like I just have a lot of people that have shared their wisdom with me. And he said, look, there's nothing interesting in the obvious.
Ooh.
Right? So there's nothing interesting in the obvious. So the obvious license plate is some like, look at me and draw attention to me.
Yeah.
Or I want to make a statement about something like I'm cool or whatever, or I'm controversial, right? My license plate, the way they're written and the words I chose functionally, they're meant to make you curious. They're meant to make you think a little bit. So conduit is not an expression that people use. You might hear like vessel or I mean, people tell me might use conduit, but functionally you go to Home Depot for conduit. Like literally on the aisle signs, it'll say conduit.
Yeah.
Like, so to
say that again. You said a good conduit, like the
a good conduit basically is transferring something. Its job is to be the transfer agent for whatever's inside of it. Like if the conduit is meant to transfer water, you don't want to leak. If the conduit's meant to transfer energy, you don't want it to be wasted. If the conduit's meant to, whatever it's meant to transfer, the idea is a really good conduit transfers it incredibly efficiently without much loss.
Wow.
Is the way I think about it. And so if I'm trying to be that, and this is where the Malachi 3 thing about, giving showed up in my life when I was 30. I didn't realize it till I was about 40, how it all connected was, if I receive it and I believe the fact that it will be renewed or restored or God will honor that in some way, whether it's not in the same form or function, but just honor the fact that I'm in that posture, then why wouldn't I want to be passing it through as efficiently as I can? My time, my energy, talents, whatever. Yeah. And that's when it really crystallized when I was plus or minus 40. And I was like, well, Eric, you're in this posture now where you have been given these things, whether you want them or not. So enjoy them and share them with others. And so it became this posture of, I get more enjoyment out of other people driving my car than frankly I do. Like the boys get to take them out and I share them with friends who've never driven fun cars. And I love that.
You let us drive.
Right.
Your car.
And again, this is not some crazy expensive car. It's no different than like an F-150. But to me, it's a fun car that people don't get to see very often. And so I generally get a lot of joy out of being a conduit for those experiences. And there's nothing more that I enjoy than like supporting my kids in those things or providing opportunities for people that don't have them or connecting people that there needs to be a connection there and then having it be as efficient as possible. And I think it's just a posture that I found myself in where I became more comfortable with the place I was in because I wasn't before. And I think what made me feel more comfortable was the idea that it's not just for me. Like, 100% comes to me and of my knowledge and I keep 50% of it, but don't pass it on. Well, no, like write the book, like tell the stories, like expose yourself, like try it out and just be available to people, be more open-handed or in a posture that doesn't hold on to things so tightly.
Yeah. That word, not holding on to things so tightly. I think everybody listening, watching, including myself, could use a little pump up talk for that real quick because the fear of failure is so real.
It is.
And so have you had any failure along the way of trying to hold things super loosely? And what would you say to us who are maybe on the edge, about to take a step, but scared to?
Well, holding things loosely. So I have one in the last couple of days. I had an experience that I had and I wanted to inspire someone with it. And I asked them to keep it between the two of us. So it wasn't meant for public, right? I'm not really on Facebook and social media and things like that. And so I sent this guy a text and I was like, look, hey, I had this really neat experience over the weekend while I was in California and it blew my mind. Like I could not have scripted it. And I'll tell you guys about it offline sometime, but like I could not believe that it actually happened. And I just want to share it with a few friends like, hey, like this really cool thing happened. So I'm holding on to the story loosely, right? And I'm like, hey, this could be an encouragement and inspiration to them because look at this thing that just happened to me that I could have never imagined, right? And I was really doing it from a posture of, let me just share this experience. Let me just maybe this will be helpful to you. And I did. And what was really sad was a day later, I got a text from somebody else going, hey, well, I heard you were out there doing this thing. And I was like, like that kind of hurt. Like, so I held on this experience. I mean, this is silly, but this just happened. Like I held on to this experience loosely because I want to share it with someone else, not because of bragging. I didn't post on social media. It was just, I shared it with a friend and I felt like I was betrayed or I was taken advantage of, right? And that happens like that. I give to people like of my time or money or the knowledge I have, and they're going to misuse it because I've done that. I've misused it when people have done that for me. But to be deterred in that means that you also then won't receive it is the way I view it, right? Like if the less I give to you, the less someone else is going to give to me. And that's just the way I view it. Like the relational equity that I have with people, oftentimes I determine if I'm going to make a deposit before they do. And if I don't make that deposit, then I'm probably, for sure, they probably won't make the deposit in me. We just live in a transactional world. What do you do for me? Like what's in it for me type of thing. And so the loosely thing for me is a discipline at this point. Like it's an act of obedience. I think I shared this with one of you. Like when I was in my 30s, I came up with this kind of like symbol and it was like, obedience changes your heart or your heart leads to obedience. It doesn't matter where it starts, but it needs to start somewhere. So sometimes I'm just incredibly obedient. I'm like, I'm just going to be disciplined at this. I'm going to share what I have. I'm not going to ask questions. I'm going to try and like left hand, right hand thing, right? They like let it go. And if they abuse it and it hurts me, I can learn from that, but it's not going to deter me. Like that doesn't mean everyone's going to do that to me. And again, I don't know if that comes from just watching my parents for so long, be incredibly forgiving people and not like, they found ways to engage in people that other people didn't. We had a really tough situation when we were a kid, and this pastor stepped out of lines, and I watched the congregation like just beat this person up, and my parents were like, they didn't agree with what happened, but they were supportive of the person, right? And I think so for me, it's like the loosely thing is, you are going to disappoint me. You're going to disappoint. I mean, I'm going to do things for each of you that at some point I'll be like, God, it didn't work out the way I hoped it would.
Yeah.
But if I don't then go do that again, I'm the loser.
Right.
And that's, I think that's what we miss on the loosely thing is that because the open-handed thing, and I shared this with you guys this morning. Okay. I cannot receive anything and I cannot give anything.
Yeah.
Okay. I can let go of something, but I can also receive something. And most of what we need to do is be in a posture of still receiving. But in order to be in a posture of receiving, look how vulnerable I am. I mean, I'm completely exposed here. Like I have and that's what holding on to things loosely is that you're kind of exposed, and you share that money, or you share that encouraging word, or you share that secret or whatever that, and a lot of times it goes into someone's hands and they do this with it.
Yeah. The only way to not lose something is to hold it loosely.
Well, what is it? What is it? Take up the cross and
lose your life and you'll find it.
Right. So functionally that, and I think I just believe that. I think I've just, that means something to me. Because so many people invested in me that I didn't, that I probably didn't do the right things with.
I love that you said, functionally, I just believe that. Because I think you can just believe
it's not
that, but then you can functionally just believe that. It's very, very different.
Yeah.
That's when it changes your life. And that's when you change the world around you, when you functionally believe it.
And I think as I've gotten older, there's more reference points in the rearview mirror that tell me that. When I was younger, there weren't reference points. There weren't mile markers or kind of like things that I could look at. And so I think the muscles had to work harder to believe that. At almost 50, there's so many stories I can tell where holding things loosely, or asking the question, or being curious, or why not type of mentality, it developed into friendships, or it developed into experiences, or it developed into like these mentoring things that I have with people for 20 years that the posture I was in was just like, here's what I have to offer you. And it's not very much, but my hands are still open. So if you're willing to put something in there, I'm going to like treasure it. Right. And
to bring it full circle, that's the long game of obedience. It's the long game of generosity. It's being a conduit, not just when you feel like it, or not when things are transactionally fair, but realizing this is the posture of life I'm going to live in regardless of the outcomes. And that's where true freedom is, because I think most people, they don't live in obedience or generosity, or, opening up and sharing things in life because they've been hurt. They have baggage. And so they close those fists, maybe with justified reasons, but like you said, they end up losing.
Agreed. And I will tell you, like, I am not always a cheerful giver. I mean, full disclosure.
I don't know that anybody is.
Right, no. but that's what I'm saying though. Right? There's this idea that like I'm skipping and jumping, it's rainbows and butterflies.
Wait,
and I can't wait to like, and I'm just here. You take this,
right?
And I'm, and it's like this magical rainbow pops over my head, and I'm like, I'm in love with the world, right?
Yeah.
No, like it's for me, I want it to be an act of obedience, because if it's not, I don't feel the tension of what it costs me.
That's
think about that.
That's good.
Like I think
it means something more when
right. So
there's part of you that doesn't want to make that decision, but you do.
Yeah, here's the way I think about it. I think I prayed to God when I was 30. I was like, I don't want that tension to ever go away, because that's the beauty of the relationship. Is that if I have something that I care about, and I don't care about losing it, then I really didn't care about it. But if I care about it because it matters, and then in act of obedience, I let go of it, then that's the tension I think that where God like shines. And in my life, that's where I find my faith develop, is in that fact of that tension is what I think what he's after for me, is that he wants me to feel that tension. And the moment I don't feel the tension, then I have to go reevaluate.
Yeah.
Like, did I give anything of value at all if I didn't feel the tension? Like, I love sharing with you guys this morning, because the tension of that was he gave me that to share. And I wanted to honor that. And at the same time, if I just had a few notes and a few thoughts and I winged it, it could have been fine, but there's less tension in that. Like it had a different feeling because of the tension that how it was received by me. Right. And I think that's, when I think of giving, I pray the tension never goes away, whether you give your first $1 or you're giving $1,000, because I think that's what God wants he wants to engage you in that tension. And there's not a right or wrong or a formula in my opinion. He wants to have the conversation. What did you give up Starbucks this week? Then give the $6. Like, Like, what does that feel like? What's it feel like to go without something? To put something else in front of the things that you care about. And so that's, to me, that's the beauty of the tension of being a giver, of just being in this posture, is that that's scary. And I don't like it. But you know what? Like, if I do believe I have these gifts, and I do believe I've been giving something the purpose that's supposed to be for others, then I miss out if I start doing this.
Dang.
But I'm not always a cheerful giver. And I think, and it's okay. That's okay. It's okay not to be a cheerful giver. A lot of times it could just be an act of obedience.
You know,
and then your heart changes through that. Like you get excited about it in small doses.
There tends to be joy on the other side of that tension.
Agreed.
Once you make the decision
100%
to give whatever it is, time, treasure, talents, and you fight that battle, but you fight through it and you become a conduit. And then you on the other side are like, man, this is the overflowing joy.
100%. And then as you get older and as you have more experience, you have more reference points to then remind you of, okay, that tension's something I'm actually excited about. And I'm looking forward to the joy that's on the other side of it, because it motivates me to give of it more, whatever the giving of it more is, an idea, a thought, an encouragement. Like
when you do ice baths, you actually have to start increasing or decreasing, I guess, the temperature to make it harder, because it's miserable the first few times you do it, and you feel the dopamine and the way your body responds after is way better the more miserable you are in the cold tub. And so when you start to get used to it and you start to actually look forward to the 3 minutes in the ice, the benefits are less.
Sure. Totally.
So, you have
the tension is relieved.
Yeah, you have to go away for a little bit and then come back, and now it's hard again, and then it benefits you more because of it.
And we know this from the standpoint of work. I mean, you guys have, like, you're still at the age and you're working out and you're building muscles. We know this. Like, we know the logic of the fact that that's how you build muscle and that's how you get stronger.
Yeah.
When the tension goes away or there's less resistance, there's no muscles being built.
Right.
So what I can lift, you would look at and go, that's like not even an exercise for me. But functionally, the appropriate tension for me is different than it is for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I can, in the same way you can reduce your tension and gain no muscle, I can do the same thing and gain no muscles, but it's just a different scale. Like it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how giving works too, of your time and your, what do you have to offer people?
That's a huge piece of our Kingdom Builders series at the end of every year is we're going, hey, what does it look like for you to raise your resistance a little bit?
Agreed.
If everybody in the church can just take a step forward every year, and then we can start stacking that on top of each other year by year, we're going to be generous.
And I think through a posture of just celebrating that, that's what I've appreciated about you guys when I've been through a couple of these series before in the last couple of years, is that it's the widow's mite, right? Like it really is.
Yes.
Each person's story is their story. And what I've told myself is God wants me to feel the tension of being a giver because it means something. And so for that person that gave $5 for the first time, in many ways, that's as big of a celebration as a person's been giving for 20 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. Like, I love that about how you guys approach it, because I remember what it was like to tip for the first time or give for the first time and do that. And then look up and go, I'm not buying this for myself or for my family or for my wife or whatever. As I grew, and I also knew it was like to write checks that I'm like, what in the world am I doing? Like, are you kidding me? Like, how, like, and then explain that to my kids or my friends and be like, this is why I'm doing it. And they're like, I don't understand why you don't buy that. I don't understand why you don't do that. I don't understand why you don't treat yourself. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's just part of the posture.
And people think it's going to get easier to be generous the more money you make.
No, I will tell you, that is the biggest. No, I will jump out of my seat.
Who can actually, with authority,
I will jump. I will jump out of my seat.
Yes,
please do. Give us a little bit.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
So, and again, this is not about me, but I'm gonna give you perspective. Our giving as a family now is more than I made 20 years ago. And when I was giving 20 years ago, it was incredibly easy compared to giving it now. Because think of it this way, right? Think of it this way. The world is this big when you're 30. And the things go well for you in your life, and your influence grows, and your career grows, and your income grows, and the people you know grows, and the shiny objects grow. And the things that you can do becomes vast. The trade-off you're making is that much harder.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm going to say this carefully. If you know that your budget allows for you to go to Outback and have a wonderful steak and a Victoria's filet and share it just like we did when we were like 25 years old and 30, and get out of there for $25 by sharing a steak and get an extra potato. But then you get to go to Three Forks and your meal there's $150 or whatever it is at Three Forks. How many more steakhouses are in between Outback and Three Forks, or restaurants in between Outback and Three Forks so we can get a good steak? Hundreds. I don't know. But if you're in the Outback steak world, there's just a couple choices. to get a good steak for $20. So you don't even know what you're missing, right? You don't even know what's out there that you could have. Okay. So when your income grows, your influence grows, and your opportunity set grows, you have to look at a lot more things and say no to them. And as I talk to friends and mentors of mine that are much older than me, they're in different totally stratospheres than I am. It's 100% true that it's hard to give it away. But I think the posture then is, okay, well, God, like there's some reason that I must have it. I've been giving, I've been in this posture. So you're going to likely present things to me that are going to cause me tension, but I will be in obedience to give to those things. And I will be okay setting this thing aside. It's not an Outback steak anymore. And it's definitely not even a 3-fork steak. It's a catered meal, or it's a flight on a private jet, or it's a VIP experience. I mean, like, so you set those things aside, but I know I can fly first class. I've never done it. I literally got bumped up once in some weird situation because it worked out, but I've never bought a first, so what I'm saying is I'm deciding to fly coach. Well, if all you can afford is coach, you're not even thinking about flying first class.
Right.
And those are silly examples, but like, that's how giving becomes harder because the trade-offs are plentiful. I mean, the things you can buy, the experiences you can have, like, so.
Yeah. Cause it's not just like, oh, I could buy a PlayStation with that money, but I'm giving it away. It's no, we could buy a home in San Diego with that money.
Yeah.
And we'll get, that's just different.
Well, it's clear if you look at the world, it's clear that the more money you make, the harder it gets to give it away, because there are people in the world right now that could solve world hunger with the amount of money they have, and they don't. And there are generous people that have billions and billions of dollars, but clearly not to the level of giving enough away or investing enough to solve the world's problems.
Well, and to your point, like I get to work with some really amazing clients and people that have done amazing things in this city and around the world, lead incredible companies, public company, like massive enterprises. And I will tell you that as the balance sheet grows, the tension of how to deal with it and what to do with it grows exponentially.
Yeah.
In a family, and it sounds really crazy to say. People are like, I want to win the lottery. I want to see how hard it is. You do not want to win the lottery. Like all the studies say it's horrible for you. And I've seen it and I've read about it and I've researched it. But this idea of I'll be different, right? Like, and the giving thing's true as well. It's like, well, it'll be different when I have more money. I'll be more generous. Well, no, it's a discipline that's learned when there's not very much, because I will tell you right now, if I had not spent the last 20 years kind of exercising those muscles, there ain't no way that if you drop me into the position I'm in now that I'd be generous. There ain't no way. There's no reason why I would be. Like I would want to go buy the stuff I would want. I would think I deserved it. I would think that like I'm the best use of those resources, not someone else. And so it took the small little things along the way and watching those numbers grow to where my wife and I, where Jaylee and I became like, I just can't believe that we wrote a check for that. But I also can't believe what we'll likely experience on the other side of like what that does for other people or how it helps other things or it makes an investment. And I don't think I missed out on anything. I really don't feel like as we've been more generous that there's something I look at and go, gosh, I really wish I'd have kept that money and bought that thing or done that trip and I think that's the beauty of the tension, is that I think God looks at that and goes, okay, I'll make you at peace with what you have left. And if more comes later, then so be it. But functionally, there's something that you enjoy about that day. And so, but it is hard to give. It is hard to give away because the siren songs are stronger and the objects are shinier, and and everyone else around you, you look that much different because you're not doing those things when you're in that position. Yeah. And I think there's what is sad. I think is that. I know what we've experienced because we've been somewhat generous and we still have so much to learn. There's so many people that are way more generous than we are that give sacrificially way beyond what we do. And I think I'm glad that tension exists because I still have something to learn. Like God still is teaching me things about being generous and us as a family and our kids. And like, it's a joy to see them become generous, or whether it's their time or their money or whatever, like they don't have to, like they've seen that there's some peace that comes from it. There's some joy that comes from it. And there's also a settled nature to, if God got my life right, then he must have also gotten my finances right the way he wired me. And okay, that's my lot in life. Going back to the Ecclesiastes thing, like, this is my lot in life. Okay, well, I'll enjoy it to the degree that I can, but I'll also try and be generous and not get so self-focused or, prideful about that I made it happen. And I think that's what's sad in the world, is that it continues to disappoint. mean, it continues to disappoint. It continues to disappoint. That steak, it's the fastest depreciating expense that you have. Because in 8 hours, you're hungry again. People talk about cars and how bad investment cars are.
That's so funny.
No, seriously. Yeah. I did this article for Consumer Reports like 20 years ago. And they're talking about like bad investments and stuff. And I was like, a fancy dinner is the worst investment you can make. Mm-hmm. Now, again, there's the experience and it's fun.
Sure,
but functionally,
yeah.
Think about it, right?
It's like
funny. That's hilarious.
8 hours later, you're hungry, right?
Yeah.
That's
whether
great.
you have the fancy steak or
agreed. Now there's an experience or something all about that, sure, and you're with people you care about. But right?
That's funny.
There is something to that. Yep.
I like to reward people who listen to the end of episodes.
Oh yeah.
So I want you rapid fire. We'll close with this. A one-liner or one best piece of advice for somebody in career, for somebody in marriage, and somebody in parenting.
Ooh.
Career.
Because you've got good advice on
career, be curious. Mm-hmm. Marriage, be committed.
We need to see here.
I know. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. With parenting, be consistent.
Ooh, he got it.
Wow. Then that was actually...
Those were really good.
It wasn't just a reach to get a seat. Yeah, that
and we can dive into more of that next time you're on here because you get
I could talk a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you for spending time with us,
bro.
And being a picture of truly a kingdom conduit.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great takeaway from this, playing the long game and being open to enjoy life and share whatever God puts in your hands with people. And you're a great example of that. Thank you for doing that in this friendship with us. We love you and appreciate you and your family.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Love
we'll see you back here soon.
Yeah. All right. Very good.
Come on.
Okay.